hello everyone. So thank you for coming here. And so from then, so we have the session, so the three topics, and setting the foundation for global startups. The global startup is very important topics, and so you know the Japanese economy is shrinking, and so how to make a global business for the startup company is very important topics. Today then very great and the speakers they are gathering, and so each have the special experience how to make a global startup company. And anyway, and so the today's and so you have some insight how to make a global startup company. Okay. The introduce and the each speakers. Soraya-san, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone in the back hear me? Okay, perfect. It's hard to hear anything in this room, so please bear with us. So my name is Soraya Umewaka. I'm from Match Hat. I come from a filmmaking background, making documentaries in Ecuador, Cambodia, Brazil, Lebanon, Japan. And I also have a theater background, so I don't know if you're familiar with No Theater, NOH Theater with the mask. So that has been going on in my father's family for over 600 years. My mother's from Lebanon, so that means that in my house, I was like an interpreter, interpreting cultural expressions from Lebanon to Japan. But just to tell you a little bit more about my creative journey, I noticed that it's really hard to find, very challenging to find key collaborators for my creative projects, film projects, theater projects. So that was the inspiration for Match Hat, which is a startup that helps creators find collaborators for their creative projects.
Okay, thank you. The next thing is Farid. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's true. It's very hard to hear up here, so please bear with us. My name is Farid Benamor. I'm American. I've been living in Kyoto for 3 years, developing a startup through my company, Sababa Kabashiki Kaisha. Our project now is called Simu Lumis. It's a real-time rendered 3D lifelike world where users scan and play in real Earth environments. My background is primarily as a media entrepreneur. I've developed streaming video services both at traditional companies, major movie studios like Warner Brothers, TV distributors like DirecTV in the US, and other television networks. And I also went to a startup, which kind of gave me the startup bug, called Pluto TV. It's now the world's second largest free ad-supported video streaming service, second only after YouTube, where Soraya previously worked. We sold that company, so that kind of liberated me to explore my passion, which is all centered around the video game Kyoto ecosystem. And similarly to Soraya, I also have this diverse background. My mother is Chilean, and I'm also of Palestinian and Tunisian descent. So what you said really resonated with me about being an interpreter and kind of multicultural, even at home. And I guess it's part of the reason I've also lived abroad in many different countries, and so the reason I see so much value in diversity in business, which has been backed up by statistics, which we'll later see. Anyway, that's a little bit about me, so I'll pass it over.
Okay, thank you, Farid. The next is Dennis. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denise Suhur. I'm from Venezuela and from Chile as well. My mother is from Chile, and I was born and grew up in Venezuela. So also at home, I had quite multicultural scenario. I moved to Japan 10 years ago to pursue my PhD. I'm a scientist who later became interested on business, so I also joined business school. And my startup is on the biotech. We are developing 3D bioprinting tools to print materials with human cells. So we want to print fully functional organs in the future, although for now we can print only just small, tiny piece of tissues for drug testing and these kind of things. I've been living in Japan, in Kyoto, for about 5 years. I also work in a pharmaceutical company here in Kyoto. So I think I have a lot to share with you about diversity, not only my startup, but also in the companies I have worked for. And also I am an academic. I also work at the Kyoto University, so I also have that experience. Would be happy to share with you more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Fumiko-san, go ahead.
Okay. Hello everyone, this is Fumiko. I'm pure Japanese. I'm now the entrepreneur in Malaysia offering the business microfinance for retail, the small amount of loan. But after graduation, Japanese university, I started my first career as a finance for almost 11 years in Japan. But after that, when I'm university student, I was traveling in Vietnam to supporting NPO activities for street children. Then I want to combine in my specialties as finance cross with the microfinance in developing countries. Then I travel in Bangladesh to staying for 5 years, and then they're working in microfinance institution with the Grameen Bank and BRAC. Then after I found the co-founder of CTO, Bangladesh CTO, then we discussed to start up the digital microfinance in Asia. Then we choose the Malaysia as global country, close to Singapore and close to Indonesia, and very good the digital backgrounds. So we started our journey from Malaysia as entrepreneur. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fumiko-san. So last thing, so let me introduce myself. So I'm Makino, the Monozukuri Venture CEO. The Monozukuri Venture is the venture capital for hardware deep tech startup company in Japan, the US. So we are based in Kyoto. You know the Kyoto in so today the very end so how can I aggressively the so event, but so daily in the so no few startup company and a few investor. But why and so we based in Kyoto? So we are so targeted not only Kyoto, not only Japan, so US. It is why and so we focus on the hardware. Now in the currently in the so and some of the startup companies so make a hardware related business, like a Tesla, like a so Nvidia, anywhere, and so these are company in the combined software and hardware. And some cases in the so they looking for the so hardware partners. That before in the so China in the great partners, but you know the so Japan, the US, and so very and so sensitive. And some of the companies are looking for the so partner in Japan. We support the manufacturing to the collaborate with the so Japanese manufacturers from the so prototyping to mass production. Anyway, and so the startup company need the money as well. So we invest money, and so far we have the so 60 the portfolio company in Japan, the US, the half from Japan, the half from the US, and the last in the open innovation. The most of the startup company that's so not only the B2C and the B2B and the B2B2C business. That we and introduce the startup company to the so large company. Some of the case in large company that's so how to the so evaluate, how to the so the support the startup company, and we do the so the consulting, the advice business to the for the large company. Anyway, and so we are based in Kyoto and so global business. Anyway, and so today and so the 5 and the members and so we talk about how to make a so global startup company. Okay. This is so the very good and so the phrase. This is so McKinsey the report in the so the diversity that is very important to make a business, to make a so the global business. But so diversity is so very important topics. The why and so diversity is very important. We talk to the so deeply this point. The first in the so the defining the diversity. The following. So which one? Yeah.
Sure. I don't think I can declare the definition of diversity for everyone. Actually, I'd be very curious to hear from you in the audience what you think diversity, the most important diversity is, especially when talking about company profitability. It's probably many different kinds. Of course, we think about cultural, gender, nationality, and so on. But I think it's important to just have different viewpoints, right? People who come from different upbringings, they present different viewpoints and present angles on things which you might not have ever thought about before. So I think that's something that I've seen in my own experience. Do you guys have any ideas about?
Yes, I think it's very well known that to establish a startup company, you need diversities in terms of skills. Investors will always look at the team. Where is the engineer guy? Where is the business person or the marketing person? But I think it's also important to look for diversity in other aspects or across several aspects, as you mentioned. Diversity in terms of gender and the cultural background. I think that will give advantage to any company enter in a global, particularly if you want to reach a global market.
Fumiko-san, so how about the diversity in the division in your company?
For me, diversity is kind of the window to know the different culture. So especially in Malaysian office, we have 5 different nationalities and ethnics, and because of naturally, Malaysian has 3 nationality, 3 ethnics. So for me, it's a new. So through the employees, I have a chance to know what different values and also the religious customs, and so I learn a lot of things from the employees or customers. So the diversity is so necessary for me, and to creating the service and to think about the process to how to approaching the customers itself and to invent it of our service to fit with the customers. So the diversity is necessary for the office itself.
Okay, yeah, Malaysia is very diversity in the country, and so naturally, and so make us so diverse and the business diverse and so team, and so. How about Japan? So in that case, very hard, especially Japan. So the Kyoto in so very and so domestic, and so how to do that?
Yes, so in the case of Matchat, I have engineers in Malaysia, UI UX designer from Turkey who's based in Tokyo, and community builder in Indonesia. I think nowadays, even though I'm based in Kyoto, the location of the team isn't so important, and so diversity, good ideas can come from anywhere, and with all the collaboration tools that we see today, like Slack and Zoom and all these tools, it's just becoming easier and easier to work remotely. I think the one thing that would be an interesting topic to discuss is like when we look at diverse skill sets and people with diverse backgrounds, the question is like, are they empowered in the business? Because it's quite easy to bring people from all over the world, but are they really encouraged to speak up and hold positions of power? So that's something that I'm constantly thinking about. Right now I have some wonderful students from Costa Rica and the US, and they're giving me so much energy because they're seeing Matchat from a different perspective. One has a math and statistics background, and like I find that very energizing.
Yeah, I think so. And so let me introduce our case. And so we have the office in Japan, so the US, New York, and San Francisco, and Toronto. And I think our company value one of the value in think globally. Because in Japan, in Kyoto, naturally we very focus on very domestic, and intentionally keep in mind how to global, how to make a business globally very important. This is the mindset very important things. Next slide in the role model is very important. Introducing some of the company in the from the.
Yeah, sure. So we had a discussion yesterday, and I think the 2 startups that I see as role models in the sphere of diversity are Canva and Notion. Canva, Melanie Perker is an incredible lady. I think she started her Canva journey at the age of 17 years old, and now her valuation, her net worth is over $4 billion. So in a world where 2% of venture capital goes to women, she's an incredible role model. Notion, I mentioned Notion because the startup founders, they had an offsite in Kyoto. I think they were working in the US. They were, from the US, but they ended up doing an offsite in Kyoto, and they ended up coding intensively, like obsessively coding in Kyoto, and that's what gave rise to Notion. So that's a very interesting case study because it shows that sometimes when you kind of leave your own bubble, maybe there's like great inspiration that you can kind of receive.
Yeah, very good cases. How about it? So do you have some the role model to make a business for you, the company? Yeah, Dennis. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw in the slide that there is Hakaru's company. I had an opportunity to meet the CEO. He's a Japanese person, and I went to his office, and I feel totally energized by the. I could see people from different countries, even in management positions. So that is an inspiration for me, particularly for me as a foreigner working here in Japan, being the CEO of a biotech company, particularly in Kyoto, which is quite traditional town. So I feel inspired by this company.
So Farid, do you have any role model? No.
It's tricky. I think about some of the things that have influenced me the most over my life in terms of companies that began as technology startups, and I find that the ones that have appealed to me the most have usually come from people who have shared a similar upbringing to me in some way. I think about some video games that I grew up really playing. Command and Conquer is one of them. I know that was a very diverse team. Unfortunately, none of them come to mind in Japan necessarily. It's something we were talking a little bit about off stage, that here it's extremely difficult to find the mix of people because there's so many barriers to moving to Japan as a foreigner, and especially if you want to join a startup or an early stage company, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I think that it's certainly an area for improvement in my mind, and I see the way government is stepping in here, organizations, people like you, venture capitalists like you, trying to encourage more money to be poured into diverse organizations, foreign-born startups especially. And then it was really encouraging yesterday to see on the same stage a couple of amazing companies, one that had the biggest exit in all of Japan's history. Haiti, that's right, thank you for reminding me. And it was started by a foreigner, so I think that there's many signs that show that there should be more role models in diverse startups in Kyoto and in Japan more broadly.
I have a question for the audience. How many people here want to work for an international startup? How many people here want to work for an international startup? Because I feel like this is sometimes people come to me and they say, I want to work for a startup that's international. So I just thought that that's an interesting observation, and I'm hearing it more and more. So I just wanted to share that.
How about Sofik-san?
For me, I respect the Gojo and company because of same industry of microfinance, and the CEO is Japanese. They may be Korean, but grew up in Japan.
CEO Korean.
Yeah, originally Korean, right? North Korean, but they all among CXO class, I think half are foreigners, half are Japanese, and especially the COO looks like Indian and from McKinsey, I'm not sure. And because of, I think the main operation area is India for them right now. So it's quite very diverse. Already operation 11 countries, and then executive class also diverse so much. And of course, talking in English, of course. And even the investor also global already. So from Japan startup, it's quite rare still, that role model. So for me, it's quite, I'm really looking for them as a role model as the same industry.
I see. And so the left side, no, left side. The Canva and so the Notion is a foreign startup company. But the right side is a Kyoto-based startup company. But this startup company very and global and very diverse. And so I asked them and why are this startup company very global? And they and so said and so the Kyoto is a few and so engineers. Eventually and so they hired so engineer from the so foreign country, the hackers and so Rutilia. And the company is so hired the engineer from the so Asian country. And so story very and also the gender startup company. I think the major of the board member in the from the female. And Nota is he used to work in the Silicon Valley. The mindset very and global. And from the beginning in the they and make a team and with the global member, global team, and the business in the global. In that case, and so far and they make the team with the global. This is point is very important. If you start a business, so which and so the market, which target is so you should and so the focus on. If you want to go to the global market, the global team is needed. The next thing is the point how you are setting the foundation of diverse startup company. This is a very important point. Okay. So first, and I and show up some the culture map. This is a book on the culture map, and each country has a different culture, and so each has the different mindset, different culture, and how to integrate. In the Japan is red, and the India is green, and the US blue. And Vietnam and Korea and France anyway. Each country has each and the culture. This is very important to understand. This is culture different. Please some the comment from that point.
Yeah, when it comes to how I'm looking for team members for MatchHat, of course, skill set that you mentioned, Denise, is very important. Language skills as well. But I think one thing we look at is, do you love creators? Because for MatchHat, we are serving creators who want to build passion projects, creative projects through the power of collaboration. So number one, do you love creators? Do you have a growth mindset? Are you curious? Do you say, okay, I've never done this before, but I'm still going to try? And do you also think about the startup journey as a marathon? So those are the main, and really kind of execute while kind of keeping an eye on the long-term vision. So those are the main kind of skill sets and attributes that I'm looking for when we're building a team. But yeah, this culture map is the first time I see it, and I don't necessarily see diversity through this lens, but I think a lot of the things listed here is like an interesting reflection of like different ways of leadership, different ways of problem solving and communication.
Do you have any comment? This is a culture map and the impression in the soul. That's something.
Yeah, I can see it through three different lenses. One is through a traditional company, American company I used to work with, called DirecTV. It's the largest television service in the United States. Back in 2010, we tried to expand to Japan. That was my first exposure to Japan, moving here at the time. A pay satellite television service where we essentially tried to duplicate what we were doing in the US, in Japan, after having done so with another team in Latin America. Latin America, it's worked and it's still working. Japan was a total failure. And a lot of it has to do with some of these attributes I see here, where the US and Japan are literally opposites, which it's very funny, right? Simply put, there was not a solid understanding of the Japanese market and the Japanese consumer. And anyone who's building a direct-to-consumer business, of course, needs to have that handle first of all. The second one was with the startup I worked with, Pluto TV. We had initially tried to launch everywhere all at once, which helped boost our numbers early on, but then people quickly churned off. And for any sort of free service, churn, how quickly a user stops using your service. is incredibly important because that dictates what your advertisers will be willing to pay you. And as a free service, that's your bread and butter. So that ended up really hurting us initially to go everywhere all at once without having curated an understanding based off of the consumers in each of those markets, including Japan. So we ended up withdrawing and then relaunching in other territories, like in Europe, with localized Europe teams, in Latin America similarly. And we still haven't relaunched in Japan because Japan is such a special animal when it comes to video entertainment. Now with Sababa and my current project, we had initially raised funding from an angel round, and I have colleagues in Switzerland, the UK, Singapore. All of our angel investors are from those countries. None of them are from Japan. I'm sad to admit.
Japan?
Even though the CEO, me, is based here.
Conversation and so
exactly. So, and part of it is not having a diverse team. You know, we don't have any high-level Japanese talent on our team. But then part of it is also the successes in other countries are due very clearly to having an understanding, having the network, and just knowing how to appeal to the right set of incentives as are delineated on this chart.
Yeah, very important point. And so Kyoto City and Kyoto and so the strongly in the so the make a so global ecosystem. In that case, in the so the understand this point in the so the context and so the culture is different. How to do that because and so we and so the try to understand so the both of them. Dennis is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, I will encourage anyone here, if you are founding a startup, start early with your company culture, the diversity, because I have worked in companies that have grown, and by the time they want to incorporate diversity, they are quite big or medium-sized company. It's way more difficult. Actually, what I experienced was that in the management, it was clear that we need a diverse team to go global, right? Because if your company is successful, eventually you want to go global. So they start hiring foreigners, but in the lower positions. So it was quite difficult to integrate all those foreigners with the, in this case it was in Japan, with the Japanese employees. So what happened was most of the foreigners were actually not staying a long time in the company. The rotation was so high. So I think setting the foundation of diversity early on in the company culture is extremely important.
Fumiko-san, so basically the very diverse in the team and how to do the so manage in the so team and so present the social.
Okay. Luckily, in Malaysia, is originally 3 ethnics living in. So they grew up from the young. They respect each other. The majority are Malay and Chinese and Indian that live together in a public school. So they already know how to communicate, how to respect, already know 3 religion, 3 language, and also English as well. So I mean, they already trained as a global environment rather than us. So me and Indian and Bangladeshi, we work together with Malaysian in our office. So as I try to pick up the people who have some trans-border experience, like me and I from Japan to Bangladesh to Malaysia. Indian come from India to stay in Malaysia more than 10 years, and Bangladesh as well. So, I mean, we can respect each other. I mean, we learn from other religions, and we providing service in at least 3 ethnics plus foreigner. So, because then we can easily to discuss and to how to diversify our service. Someone using the conventional license is using interest, but the majority of Malaysian people are Muslim, and 60% are Muslim, can't use interest. So we use the Islamic finance for different process and different license. So we learn each other, and especially I learned from Malaysian because they already trained and they knows how to respect the others. And
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? I'm so curious about them. How did you adapt to the Muslim financing model? That's something I haven't heard, like kind of an outsider adapt to that model.
Okay. Islamic finance just avoid the keywords of interest, but instead they use admission fee. So the result is same, but they replace the term key term from interest to admission fee.
How did you adapt to that? Was there like someone on your team?
Yeah, we invited for the advisor, Muslim advisor, Sharia compliance advisor, and then so work with the 3 months they established for the process, how the regulation for us. So we following that regulation, replaced all the conventional license to Sharia license. So we have a 2 process and into the system and to offering 2 service, but the result is same.
Much harder, and how do you manage because the much harder, very global the team, and not only the employee and the each and the creator is very global. You make some the team. If you sum the point and how to manage, how to integrate the global team.
At the end of the day, it's about ensuring that everyone is on the same page and understanding the long-term vision. But one thing about the Match App platform is that we're seeing collaborations take place across the border. So Japan, Europe, Japan, Middle East type of creator-to-creator collaborations. Which I think is wonderful because it makes your world feel small. So just to give you an example, there's a UK film director who was working on a robotics documentary, and he found a film producer in Japan, and it led to a great collaboration and friendship. And so when we see all these cross-border collaborations take place, we really feel that sometimes the location doesn't matter so much, especially when it comes to building music or post-production work, pre-production work. So the world is changing in an interesting time.
In that case, I want to ask about language. Yeah, language is one of the problem. How to do that and how to manage for the language problem?
Language, most of the team members speak English, but there are some team members who speak, for example, Malay and Indonesian and Turkish and Portuguese and other languages. So in that sense, it'll make it easier for us to connect with creators who speak those languages. But when it comes to creator-to-creator collaborations, I think the main language right now is English. And sometimes people are using these generative AI translation tools and Google Translate and all of that.
How about the party? Yeah, so in your team, and how to do communicate with which language and which skill?
Yeah, I think trying to adapt more to Japanese is definitely changing me as an entrepreneur. I was just thinking about it, like seeing these DeepL or whatever it is, AI translations happening, right? Part of the reason they're very difficult to follow is because in English versus Japanese and Korean, for example, we pretty much reverse the sentence structures. So you don't, as an American, I don't really have to wait for someone to finish speaking until I can start to talk over him. But in Japanese, usually the intent of the sentence doesn't come until like the very last syllable. So it's certainly making me slow down a lot. And I think part of the reason I need to have more Japanese colleagues. So hopefully when we raise more money, we can hire those.
How about Dennis?
Yeah, actually, although we are based in Japan, the official language is English. Yeah, and actually, I think that related to the previous question, to ensure diversity as well, a person that can speak more than one language, that also means that this person probably had some overseas experience or at least interest in another culture. So I think it's a good way also to find people for your team or to hire people. So this is mainly what we do on Smart Issues.
How about Fumiko-san?
As for communications, luckily all the staff can speak English, so we can communicate through the English. But the documentation written in Malay, because the Malaysian government only use for Malay in documentation, so that part we use the Google Translate, DeepL, then to between from Malay to English, English to Malay. Then that's the most hardest part for us.
How about the speaking level of the Malaysian people in the
Very natural.
Very natural.
Much better than me. And then because I think they are under the British colony for a long time before, and then education system is kind of influenced from English. From British, and so as they can speak 4 languages: Malay, Chinese, Indian, and English. English and Malay is almost public language for them, so they are very fluent. It's very natural.
Yeah, and so in our company, the beginning, so many foreign people. In that case, the documented all English, but now in the majority is Japanese. We shift to the Japanese, and now in the dual and hybrid, the Japanese and English, and anyway, and the AI is very good, and translation. The foreign member can understand it, even if the Japanese document. Anyway, and the way and the how to do manage, how to communicate is very important. The last Sunday in the Masayoshi song, the mentioned it's not important to speak English frequently. The communicate very important. Why the most important to do the global business. I agree with this idea. Yeah. Okay. Maybe the last slide. This is related to us and why and invest in the startup that are diverse. Because we invest in Japan, the US startup company. I think in the difference in between Japan and the US. The Japanese startup company, most of the Japanese startup company are all Japanese. Of course, the communication is all Japanese. But the US startup company, not only the US guy, they're very diverse. Yeah, and higher and the several country people, and make a team and best team to do the business. I think in the rule is changing. Before in the national team is very important, but now in the currently the club team. The football, the baseball, the major league and the soccer and the football in not only the national team, the higher in the correct in the talent, from the global, the best talent. The startup company is now in the club team. But on the other hand, Japanese startup company, now in the currently the domestic member and the local member and the focus on domestic market. This is a big point. How to make us global business. In that case, how to make us global team is a very important the first step, I think. Okay. So how do you have any comment in this? Sorry.
I can add. As I said, my background is mainly in movies and television, and part of the way we really maximized our value before was in territorial rights. But now Netflix basically destroyed that, right, in a good way, and have moved us into a more globalized platform where global platforms are now the norm. So I think it doesn't surprise me that we've even heard over the last few days venture capital is more global now, right? They don't really care where you are based. Similarly, the startups are more global. It doesn't really matter where you're based as long as you're really delivering on your promise. I don't remember the statistic, but I remember seeing something that said immigrant founders in the U.S. are actually more successful than non-immigrant founders. And so I think this is just another good reason to show why the more diverse you are as a startup, especially your founding team, the more you're likely to have the right recipe for success in the long run, I hope.
Okay. Okay. Yes, and so from there, so Q&A, and so if there's audience have any question, so please ask, and so and speakers and so please raise a hand. じゃあ、西山さん。
Thank you very much for your great presentation. And I'm curious about the starting business in Japan for a foreign company or foreigners. I think it's really difficult to start or be successful in Japanese market. Do you have any advice or need to do in the Japanese market?
じゃあ、それさんから。Any other question? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, quick question about the localization and the different, like having the app in different languages. Do you prioritize that over functionality, I guess? Like how do you manage like localization versus new features, I guess, and which takes more importance?
So, okay.
Yes. I would take the first question. Thank you for the question. Yes, you are totally right. Actually, as a foreigner, it's quite difficult to establish a company in Japan. Even to be the representative director, you need to have some investor visa. There is also now a startup visa, but actually that visa is quite short. I think it's only 1 year. So luckily, I have been in Japan for quite long, and I got permanent residence. So I managed to establish my business without major problems. But I would suggest to have a Japanese co-founder. Yeah, for sure. It will help you with the oral culture barriers. It's not totally necessary, but I think it makes easier the startup journey.
You have a Japanese co-founder.
Yes.
Any other comment?
Recently.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to take the second question. That's really interesting about in terms of launching in territories and considering the balance between localization and features. So with my startup, which is this 3D rendered lifelike world, we were initially using third-party data from companies like Google Earth and other providers who have scanned different objects or even handmade different buildings and structures around the world for 3D implementation. It turned out that the territories, we had about 13,000 users before we ended up shutting down, but the most successful territories we had, because we launched in a number of English-speaking territories all at once, were in Europe and in Australia, because both of those territories were more likely to have hand-sculpted 3D structures. I think, and based on the feedback we received, I think that was part of the reason of its success. In other areas, we were relying on procedurally generated structures based on the dimensions of buildings, or based on like very low resolution scans made by like planes and that kind of thing. So it would have been better to target those territories from the start and maybe roll out different features in different territories. But now we decided to basically pivot the whole concept and scan the buildings ourselves. So I'm not sure how the features will change territory by territory, but I'm sure that it's still a necessity. I'm just giving you our specific case, but I think the lesson here is there's probably features to be localized in addition to the actual content.
Okay. Yes. Short comment.
Yeah, so my advice to startup founders, Japanese or non-Japanese, is to really find someone who believes in the vision, and you're like co-creating together, as well as finding all these partners and team members who will who loves the vision and the journey that you want to take the startup. That many supporters in this room and ecosystem players that Matchhat is very grateful for. So my advice is like find the supporters. Find people who is aligned with the vision, and just keep on going.
Okay, last 30 seconds, and so please, and so last comment to the message that.
Okay, yeah. So to fill into the gap, to work with diverse nationalities is so important, and it's also good for your service to think about it, to reach the customers. So don't be afraid of, and then to even in Japan also, you can start the global companies. Yeah.
Comment? Yeah, last comment. Yeah, please short comment.
Well, from me, just start early with diversity. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
As a direct-to-consumer entrepreneur, they say like build what you love, but you can't. You can only build what you love, and people are very different. So you have to have diverse people to also build what they love, so that your startup will be more successful globally.
Okay, thank you. Last comment.
Hard to build great things alone. Thank you everyone for your support and for being here today.
Okay, time is over. All is done. So I think this session the promote to do the global business. Thank you.